This is ABC 7 News.
We do not have a problem in San Francisco that is bigger than public safety.
We're short 911 call operators, we're short nurses, firefighters, and yes, we're short sheriffs and police officers.
Basically, this is a cop tax scheme.
Police staffing levels will soon be up to voters after a controversial measure passed by a narrow vote in San Francisco. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Larry Beal.
And I'm Kristen Z. That contentious Board of Supervisors vote was also extremely close, 6-5.
The city wants to boost minimum police staffing to more than 2,000 officers within 5 years, filling the department's 300 open jobs by offering hiring bonuses, also improving recruitment efforts. But they can now only do that if voters approve this measure.
ABC 7 News reporter Suzanne Fawn is live in the newsroom with a closer look at the controversy. Suzanne?
So, Kristen, Larry, everyone at City Hall seems to agree that San Francisco needs a lot more police officers, but they strongly disagree on how to get that money to hire them. It's so contentious that the supervisor who originally introduced the plan ended up voting against it. Supervisor Matt Dorsey says he first introduced a measure to boost the number of police officers in San Francisco.
Make sure that we're delivering on the promise of a fully staffed police department and that we were doing it right out of the gate. We would have been solving this problem in the next budget cycle.
But then Supervisor Asha Safai introduced an amendment to Dorsey's measure.
Currently, the proposal as it was anticipated didn't have a funding source. So going into an $800 million deficit, which we are facing in our city, the question was, how are we going to pay for a recruitment fund and to increase our minimum police staffing through that recruitment fund?
This was a poison pill amendment that came in at the last minute that said we're going to adopt this, but only if voters enact a new tax that creates additional revenue for it.
City leaders weighed in.
This measure is messy, and it doesn't do anything to immediately fund and hire police.
This is the worst written piece of legislation I think I've seen in my 15 years on this board.
There has been some misinformation promoted about this measure.
The Board of Supervisors approved adding the measure to the March 2024 ballot. Supervisor Dorsey says his original measure was hijacked and has since become a tax hike or a tax hike scheme. But Supervisor Safai says that people are getting the wrong idea, and his proposed amendment does not involve new tax hikes.
Right now, no one will be voting on a tax. It says we can go back in the future and we can modify an existing tax. We can go and say, we're going to repurpose some of the money that we have, some of the previous taxes, and we can apply it to this new concept of an aggressive recruitment strategy. We could look at the CEO tax. It's just gone into effect. It's $160 to $190 million a year.
Instead of just focusing on hiring more police, the amended measure would also include more deputies, firefighters, and 911 operators. What Asai believes is true public safety reform.
We want to have a comprehensive public safety package, but we have to have a way to fund that and be fiscally responsible in this economic crisis that we're in.
Mayor London Breed says we should not tie police staffing to raising taxes. In a letter to Supervisor Dorsey earlier this month, the mayor stated, quote, "We should not require our residents and businesses to pay more taxes to provide the police officers they rightly expect to see on our streets." Back to you.
And it seems like there's a lot of confusion about what's going on here. Is this really a cop tax, as Supervisor Dorsey has framed it?
Well, if you look at the language in the amended measure, you can see why Supervisor Dorsey is worried what voters will think. It says the staffing levels are contingent on, quote, "a future tax measure passed by the voters will generate sufficient additional revenue." And in a separate section, it refers to, quote, "new or modified tax to fund the efforts." So it might be a new tax or it might be a modified existing tax. Either way, it's now up to voters to approve the plan.
We'll see what happens. Thank you, Suzanne.